Wakey wakey, the Kellogg's football camps are back this summer. To claim a free place, purchase a promotional pack of Kellogg's cornflakes, Cocoa Pops or Rice Krispies. Scan the QR code on pack or visit kelloggsfc.com to request your free code. See website for full terms and conditions.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Chapter 2. Lady Patricia. It was Wednesday morning and Charlie was woken up by the bright morning sun rising through a crack in his bedroom curtains. Today wasn't any other school holiday day though. It was another day of being a crime investigator, carrying an immense amount of responsibility as the missing cup needed to be found in time for the famous cup final. Charlie, as agreed, met Mrs. Amber outside the special building at 9 a.m. Mrs. Amber stood there like a military commander with 2 rucksacks and a bin liner full of stuff. "Morning, Mrs. Amber," shouted Charlie. "Shh! We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves, Charlie. Keep your blooming voice down, will you, boy?" Mrs. Amber hurried Charlie into the special building and shut the door behind them both. They walked into one of the rooms and Mrs. Amber poured the contents of the bin liner onto the floor. Charlie looked down and said, "What on earth is all this stuff, Mrs. Amber?" "This, Charlie, is what we will be wearing today. It is our disguise. We don't want to get noticed at either of the addresses we're going to, do we?" "No, I suppose you're right, Mrs. Amber," said Charlie. Mrs. Amber chucked Charlie some clothes, which included a long-sleeve white top, some dungarees, and a long, curly, blonde wig. Mrs. Amber, I think these are yours," said Charlie. "No, certainly not. They're yours, Charlie. Today you'll be known as Elof." "You must be joking," yelled Charlie. "I sound like a Swedish waiter. You'll have me cooking meatballs in gravy before I know it." "Just get the clothes on, will you?" said Mrs. Amber, with a very serious look on her face and a tone which told Charlie she wasn't playing today. Charlie did what he was told. He got the white top on, the dungarees and the blonde long wig. He stood in front of a mirror and in his best Swedish accent he repeated, "My name is Elof. My name is Elof. My name is Elof." Mrs. Amber had dressed herself up as a parking warden. She was wearing a white shirt, a bright high-vis vest and a black curly wig with an old train driver's hat. Oh, and a stick-on moustache, which looked very strange. Charlie and Mrs. Amber were doing a funny old job of not being seen because they certainly looked entertaining. Mrs. Amber," Charlie said. "Yes, Elof," said Mrs. Amber. If my new name is Elof, what do I call you? Because I can't call you Mrs. Amber. You have a moustache." "You will call me, John. John, that'll be my name. Call me John, Charlie." Charlie stood there wondering what on earth he'd got himself into. "Right, Elof," said Mrs. Amber. "The first address we are going to is 405 Twirler Avenue, the Patricia's house." Charlie, also now known as Elof, and Mrs. Amber, also known as John, went out the door and were ready to go. Mrs. Amber started walking off at a high-speed pace out of the driveway of the special building and straight onto the pavement of the main road. Charlie shouted, "Mrs. Amber, sorry, I mean John, where's your car?" Mrs. Amber responded, "I don't have a car, Elof. We're walking." Charlie went a funny shade of grey, and that feeling of dread filled him from his nose to his toes. What if I'm seen, he thought. I'll have a nickname of Elof forever. Charlie had to get on with it, though. He was on a mission, and it was an opportunity to save the day. He chased after John, aka Mrs. Amber, who was marching down the road like a brigadier. Oh, and if you're not sure what a brigadier is, it's a type of soldier. And what do soldiers do? They march, with the most perfect of postures. This is exactly what Mrs. Amber was doing. As Charlie and Mrs. Amber were walking up the road, they were getting some funny looks from all the drivers and pedestrians travelling in different directions. In the distance, Charlie could see a small group of children his age walking on the other side of the pavement. However, these children were coming towards him and Mrs. Amber. They also had a football in their hands. Charlie's feeling of dread returned as he had a nudge of the memory and thought to himself, "Oh no, it's Wednesday. I said to George, Andrew and Joshua that I would be playing football with them today. They're heading towards my house. What on earth am I going to do?" Things went from worse to worse as the three mates of Charlie's crossed the road, and they were now not only walking towards them, but were on the same side of the pavement. A minute later, the three friends were at a distance where they could have a very good look at Charlie and Mrs. Amber. Charlie felt like his heart had dropped into his stomach as he went into full panic mode. The three mates couldn't keep their eyes off of Mrs. Amber and Charlie as they went opposite directions. And then one of them said, "Guys, stop. I know that face from somewhere." Charlie and Mrs. Amber stopped and turned around, staring at the group in hope that they wouldn't ask them anything too suspicious. "What's your name?" one of them said. "I feel like I know you from somewhere." Mrs. Amber lowered her voice and said, "My name's John." "No, not you, miss," one of them said. Sir. What's your name?" pointing at Charlie. Elof?" As Charlie said that, he went completely red. Mrs. Amber then just shouted at the three mates, "Now sling your hook, or I'll be round to your houses to give your parents a parking ticket, and you will be to blame." Charlie's three pals disappeared quickly and headed towards his house. Charlie couldn't quite believe what he'd got himself into. How did I go from that lovely dream about cheesecake to wearing a wig and being called Elof? This is completely ridiculous, Charlie thought. Nevertheless, Charlie followed Mrs. Amber, who was now marching down the road looking even weirder than she already did. He followed Mrs. Amber down a series of twists and turns, and eventually they ended up at Twirler Avenue. "Aha!" said Mrs. Amber. "We are here." "What house is that house there?" Mrs. Amber said to Charlie as she pointed to a house on the corner. Number 1, replied Charlie. "Oh, blimey," said Mrs. Amber. "We've got a long old walk to get to 405. Charlie and Mrs. Amber continued walking down the path, walking past dog walkers, joggers, a postman and a postwoman, continuing to get many bizarre looks. After another 15 minutes of walking, Charlie and Mrs. Amber were getting closer and closer. Mrs. Amber started calling the numbers of the houses as they walked by each one. 391, 393, 397, 399, 401, 403. Mrs. Amber was all of a sudden extremely confused, and she looked it too. "What is up with you, Mrs. Amber?" John, said Charlie. "Well," said Mrs. Amber, "on almost every road here in England you have odd numbers on one side of the road and even numbers on the other. These numbers go from 403 straight to 407. There doesn't seem to be a 405 Twirler Avenue, which is the address that Patricia gave us at the competition." As the pair of them looked as ridiculous as ever, scratching their heads, and Mrs. Amber twirled her moustache, a postman shouted from the other side of the road. All right over there, are you two all right? You look a bit confused, to tell you the truth." Mrs. Amber, not forgetting that she was now John, deepened her voice and said, "Yes, we're all right, Nosy. We're looking for 405 Twirler Avenue, but seeing as 403 is there and 407 is there, we can't be far away." The postman looked left and right and crossed the road. He got up close to Mrs. Amber and Charlie and said, "Well, yes, I mean, you are in the right spot, but, you won't find the house. Nobody actually really knows where it is. The people who live there just seem to appear out of nowhere with a range of different dogs who look, well, I guess, just like 'em." "Bingo!" said Mrs. Amber, forgetting that she had a moustache and had just spoken to the postman in a deep and deceiving voice. Mrs. Amber then deepened her voice again and said, "I mean, bingo." The postman looked very confused, then proceeded to tell Charlie and Mrs. Amber that there's been no post delivered to 405 Twirler Avenue since 1966. The house was there then in 1966, and just one day it wasn't. I mean, not that I'm old enough to know that, but Ken in the office told us. "Anyway," said the postman, "why are you looking for him?" Mrs. Amber deepened her voice once more and said, "Well, it's a long story, but we need to find a Lady Patricia who has a dog called Patricia. And, well, that's all I can tell you for now." Mrs. Amber, a.k.a. John, thanked the postman for his help and made it clear to him that the conversation was over. The postman got the message and walked back across the road, continuing his rounds. Mrs. Amber then walked to the dead centre between the two houses and spotted a very, very thin gap in between the fences of the two houses. Mrs. Amber instructed Charlie to follow her as she went sideways down this very, very tight gap. Charlie reluctantly followed, and the gap between the fence seemed to go on forever and ever, until eventually it opened up onto a random patch of grass, which was big enough to play some five-a-side football on. At the back of the patch of grass, there was a steep slope, and out of nowhere, from that steep slope, appeared a Rottweiler dog. A Rottweiler dog wearing beads and a bonnet hat. Charlie and Mrs. Amber dived behind a large oak tree. "Bloomin' heck," said Charlie. "What if that dog sniffs us out?" Mrs. Amber put her teeth together, showing an expression of being unsure as she inhaled a lungful of air through the gap in her teeth. The two of them stayed deadly silent, trying not to cause any sort of movement which would make the dog come over to them. After a few minutes, Mrs. Amber stuck her head to the side of a tree and watched the dog disappear down the slope. Mrs. Amber and Charlie pushed themselves off the floor with their hands and slowly walked across the grass, dodging the dog poo and heading towards the steep slope. Charlie and Mrs. Amber walked down it, and when they reached the bottom of the steep slope, they noticed an opening in the grass. As they walked closer to check it out, suddenly both Charlie and Mrs. Amber fell through a trap floor and whizzed down a twirling slide into a room where the same Rottweiler they had just been hiding from was now a metre away from them, growling. "Good doggy, good doggy, good doggy," Mrs. Amber repeated with a worried and shaken voice. Charlie, now worried and beyond scared, said to Mrs. Amber, "Mrs. Amber, what the blimmin' heck do we do now?" When a familiar voice said, "You explain to me what you're doing in my house." It was Lady Patricia, the one that Charlie had seen when he crossed the road to investigate when he saw that the side door was open on the very special building. "Ah, Patricia," said Mrs. Amber, "do you remember us?" No, I don't believe I do." Mrs. Amber had to think fast, because there was a very angry lady and a very confused dog staring at them, wondering, one, how they found 405 Twirler Avenue, and why they were at the bottom of the twirling slide and in their underground house. Mrs. Amber decided to come clean. She took her hat off and her wig. She reached over to Charlie and took his long blonde hair off. "I'm Mrs. Amber, and this is Charlie. We ran the competition that you entered with your dog, Patricia. I'm the caretaker for the building in which that competition was held. The day of the competition, we thought you and your dog Patricia were so marvellous and so fantastic that we wanted to come and speak to you about judging next year's competition. How does that sound, Patricia?" The Rottweiler dog did that confused, head to the side thing that dogs do when you say anything which rhymes with walk. And Patricia, the lady who was still scratching her head and humming to herself, said, "I don't know if I believe you. And even if you did want to invite me back to be a judge, I can't blame you for doing so. But why didn't you just write me a letter?" "Well," said Mrs. Amber, But before Mrs. Amber could finish her response, an almighty bang and the sound of a grown man screaming could be heard when the postman, who had not long given Mrs. Amber and Charlie some directions, came clattering down the side. Whoa! Oh, no! What on earth are you doing in my house? Said Lady Patricia. He's the postman, said Charlie. Yes, said Patricia. I can see that. What's he doing in my house? The postman, who had just fallen down the same trapdoor that Mrs. Amber and Charlie had, now had 3 people and the Rottweiler dog staring straight at him. He then went on to say, all right, I'm Bill, I'm the postman. Mrs. Amber, Charlie and Lady Patricia all said at the same time, We know you're the postman. What are you doing here? Well, said Bill, the postman, I followed you two down that really tight gap in between the fences. I gotta tell you, I'm quite pleased myself because I got a bit of a beer belly, and I was just intrigued more than anything, to tell you the truth. I wanted to know more about what you were doing, so I quietly followed you until I disappeared down a slide into a house. It was quite fun, a little bit scary though. Lady Patricia walked away from the 3 of them, and her dog followed. She did loops around the island in her kitchen, and rather angrily started raising her voice. Patricia the dog and I have a lovely time on a Wednesday morning, planning our outfit for when we go out later, and then you 3 come clattering down the entrance to my house uninvited because 2 of you want me to be a judge and 1 of you is downright nosy. I'm not nosy, shouted the postman, who was quickly told to be quiet by Lady Patricia. Okay, said Mrs. Amber. We'll tell you the truth. I really am, Mrs. Amber. I'm in charge of a special building down the road from here. Oh, said the postman. That's where the famous cup's held, isn't it? That's why we're here, said Mrs. Amber, while Lady Patricia and Postman John looked at her with even more confusion on their faces. Mrs. Amber then went on to say, On Monday morning, the cup was stolen. 1 minute it was there, and, well, the next minute it was gone. Young Charlie here lives opposite the special building, and he noticed on that morning that the side door was open, and he came over to investigate. Charlie then carries on telling the story from his eyes. Yes, he said, Mrs. Amber's right. I saw the side door was open. It's never normally open, so I came to investigate. On my way across the road, I saw 3 people I've never seen before. There was a man whistling about his supper, a man with a wooden leg singing a song about you with the wooden leg poke the fire, and then, well, there was you, Lady Patricia. Mrs. Amber then continued and said, So I am sorry to say the competition you entered was a false competition. It was all an act to try and get the 2 other people and yourself in the same room. You were all right there, right at the time that the cup went missing. We need to find that special cup before Saturday. It's the famous cup final. And if we don't, I'm going to be in a world of trouble. Lady Patricia responded and said, Well, I can assure you that it wasn't me that stole the cup on that very day when the rain came lashing down. But I do remember you, Charlie. But I also remember something which didn't seem right. With that, the postman jumped up to his feet and shouted, I'm getting out of here. This sounds like a nightmare. And this was the moment when Mrs. Amber put a firm hand on his shoulder and told him that he would be going nowhere. And he was now a part of a crime investigation team, and all of them would be making their way to the special building.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.